The second incident into Australia was we bought a business called Franklin's. Must have been about 15 years ago now, if not longer. And Franklin's was a big chain and effectively was going bust in Australia. We bought a piece of it plus the name in New South Wales. And we started growing the business. We were doing okay because Woolworths was doing well. Coles was really struggling in Australia, and there was no other opposition. What our management team at the time chose to ignore was that Aldi was setting up a shop in Sydney and started putting stores virtually next door to all of our stores. So we ended up in a bit of a price war with Aldi, which is never a nice place to be. At the same time, Coles got themselves reorganized. So we found ourselves in a huge squeeze, competitive squeeze, with the two bigger guys fighting each other and us being squeezed between Aldi and the big supermarkets. And a couple of lessons I learned, we eventually exited, and a couple of lessons I learned out of it was, firstly, Australia is a country that is operated on duopolies, not legal duopolies, but it operates on duopolies. It's not a big enough country to really have broad competition. And unless you are number one or number two in virtually any industry, it's going to be really tough. The second issue was you don't want to get yourself caught in retail, stuck between a deep discounter and a very successful big guy, because you just can't compete, you can't have the margin. And we were limited to an area. We didn't move outside a particular area. So if we'd listened to my father's advice of the early 60s when he jumped Pick n Pay from Cape Town initially into Port Elizabeth and then into Johannesburg to be able to compete against the Checkers and OK in the day, we would probably have been okay in Australia. But we limited ourselves to New South Wales, which was a part of the country which wasn't growing. It wasn't getting big economic growth. It was over competitive, and we didn't jump into the areas where the growth was happening and to take the battle to somebody else. So you need to be in business. You need to actually be proactive. You need to say, where do I fight my battles? Eventually we sold it. We got out well, fortunately, and came back. But the second learning was the day I took over as chairman of Pick n Pay, I got on a plane and put the company on the block, put Australia on the block. You know, my father wasn't happy with me at the time. I think the board said, what are you doing? But we were running out of cash here. We needed the cash and the capital to expand. We'd run out of strategy here because we were constrained because of the amount of capital we had tied up there, which wasn't performing. So the best thing we could do was to actually release that capital, which we then brought back here and invested in the business. So I think the other lesson there was, get out in time. Don't wait for too long if something's causing problems or you think you're going to keep getting it right. And I've learned that over the years.